Mr. Kenyatta, do you own, or your family at least own, half of Kenya? And what do you have to say about what Ms. Karua just talked about?
I think I'll begin by saying I'd be very keen for my honorable sister here to take me to that land, because then maybe I can begin doing something about it.
Do you find it necessary maybe to say how much land we are talking about?
Pardon?
Do you find it necessary to say how much land you or someone else in your family owns, because that seems to be a major point of speculation that you keep referring to?
I really don't, unless you insist that I do. But the most important aspect is the fact that, as I have always stated, no organization from anti-corruption to the Ministry of Lands has ever accused me of any kind of impropriety in land. Not at all, not anywhere.
Mr. Odinga, you were mentioned also by that document that Mr. Dida seems to be referring to.
Well, in defense of my brother Uhuru Kenyatta, he was just an innocent inheritor. He did not commit the original sin. And I think the country should sympathize with him.
So how much land does your family own? Because there is a contention here. Some people saying it's half the country. Some people have said 500,000. Probably tonight is an opportunity for you to clear this matter once and for all.
My family and myself own land. And I personally also own land. And we consider land to be a factor of production. We have not, in any place, acquired any land illegally, except through willing buyer, willing seller, and to use it as a means of production to boost our own economy. And that is what we have been doing and have established and are on record. The Honorable Prime Minister has mentioned the fact that land is not an issue, is an issue, that we have these extensive tracts of land, half provinces. Today my sister is talking about half the country. He has been in charge of this government for the last 5 years as Prime Minister. The Minister of Lands was appointed by him. To date, there is nothing that they have put forward to prove those justifications.
Prime Minister, Mr. RAILA ODINGA, he says that you have been quite literally in charge of the Lands Ministry. You've been saying, recently you said in Kapenguria, that he should give some land to IDPs, and yet the Minister for Lands, James Orengo, is directly supervised, actually appointed by yourself. What have you done? It's been 5 years. Why haven't you taken him to court?
Well, this issue was never settled. That's why it has remained contentious up to now. What we did was first to have the legal framework, the new constitution, which has got a very elaborate chapter on land. Secondly, we now have also a national land policy, also developed through the stewardship of my Ministry of Land. Then we also have now a National Land Commission. So we now have a legal framework to deal with these issues of land policy. And we are saying that the Commission will be enabled to work independently. Ask yourself, why did the President refuse to gazette or to appoint the commissioners all this time, despite the fact that even the court ordered him to do so?
And it touches on you, Mr. Odinga. This has to do with the Kisumu molasses plant. And the question that arises is that at the time of the acquisition of this plant by a family associated with you, there was money that was collected from members of the public as part of this deal, and that secondly, it coincided with a time when your party at the time was in some partnership with the President Moi, who was in power at that time. Was this a coincidence? And now that you've been speaking about repossession of land, is this one of the issues you'll be looking at when you start this particular probe?
Well, I claimed earlier on that this plant was acquired through an auction. Now, the company participated in an auction along with 15 other companies and came out as the highest bidder. After this issue of land that arose, the government had acquired land from the people in that area compulsorily and only paid 4 million shillings for it. When we completed the transaction, we had paid more than 12 million shillings. for the same piece of land. But we paid the full cost of the plant from the auction. And yes, we did some collection from people. It came to a total of 2.9 million shillings.
Everybody must stand and be ready to be investigated. Everybody who has been accused of impropriety, the Land Commission should deal with it, starting with myself. But I'd like to remind you, till to date, save for the rumors that have been peddled around, nobody has ever pointed out and said that I have been involved in impropriety in land anywhere in this country.
Honorable Karua, campaigning in Marafa on 25th of November last year, you said, ukiangalia wagombeaji wengine utakuta kwamba ile ardhi ya jamii yao ni kama nusu ya Kenya. Ndiyo. Ukimpelekea mtu kama huyo kura yako, ataweza kutatua matatizo ya ardhi kweli?
Hiyo ni kweli kabisa, na vile nilikuwa na maanisha ni ya kwamba, for instance, my friend Uhuru Kenyatta, the family is one of the largest, if not the largest, landowners in Kenya. And if it comes to resettlement of squatters, we'll be targeting idle land, seeking to compensate the owners where appropriate. And I do honestly believe, even as I stand here, that for that reason, such a person would be less suited to implement the what people expect of the land, whatever. And to go further, their son, his running mate, is also in court over a land that is allegedly grabbed from an IDP. So those are the issues that I was talking about. I will not stand here.
So you wouldn't be willing to mention how much?
Well, like I'm saying, I do own land. That I do. And it is declared. You know...
How much, sir?
You know, we have now the Public Officers Ethics Act. And it clearly states that every public officer, of which I am one, and I have been since the law was in place, is supposed to report on his or her wealth. I have dutifully, in accordance with the law, fulfilled that particular requirement. Those files are available and open for anybody who has any reason to suspect me of doing anything. They just need to go to the Speaker's office.
Mr. Dida, Ms. Karua, you've been raising your hand for a while.
Yeah.
Is it this problem of ownership of land? What is the problem with that?
It's just the land, and I want to say there's very thin distinction between family land and one's land, because what we are talking about is conflict of interest. So I wanted to give my brother Uhuru a concrete example. Taita Taveta, his family and one Basil Criticals literally own most of the land. And recently...
So I think we need to clarify that first. The second aspect is it is indeed true we do own land in Taita Taveta. We own 30,000 acres as a family in Taita Taveta. He's mentioned it, that's correct.
We've got people here running for this in these elections. We have got cases. My brother has got cases, issues on the land ownership. There are others who have got cases in land. You cannot allow hyena to protect your goats. And that's why you're saying that we are better.
Your time is up. I believe your brother you're referring to is Mr. Kenyatta. Please.
Thank you. I've just heard my good brother RAILA say that I have many cases pending before court. I'd like him maybe just to cite a few.
Mr. Odinga.
Did you get that, brother?
Yes, he says you've mentioned him as having some cases in court, and he doesn't seem to know which ones they are.
No, I say some people, his running mate is known to be having cases with his own neighbors in court. So I'm saying that me and my colleague, my running mate, are not saddled. We have no conflict of interest as far as land ownership is concerned.
Let me